Hello and welcome to Venslove Academy. So this is part 4 in our penetration testing series. In the last two lectures we saw how we could use SQL injection to get data from the database that we were not allowed to see. This means that we could get all users and their hashed password out. So in this episode we are going to look at brute force and how we can brute force our way into our system. And in this, we'll be setting this to low. So we'll have the security set at low, meaning that we'll start from the bottom and then move our way up from here. But in brute force, we'll be using Burp Suite, which is a penetration security tool. And that is already pre-installed in Kali Linux, which is the virtual machine that I'm sitting in now. So I can just open this up right from the menu. But if you are not sitting in Kali Linux and you are sitting on a machine that doesn't have Burp Suite installed, you can just go to Google, search Burp Suite, and then download it. I will leave a link in the description as well. But basically, Burp Suite is the security tool that you can use for a lot of different things to test the security of a web application. And this is a very nice tool if you are a web developer or in the pen testing business, because it allows you to easily test a web application's security by performing different attacks to it and probe it and scan it in different ways. And this is of course a good idea if you are in the business of pen testing, because that's what you get paid to do. But also if you are a web developer that develop applications, it's a nice thing to know how you can easily test the security of the application that you are actually building. So we'll just start this up. We'll just choose temporary project as we see here. Then we'll click next. We will use Burp as the default setting. Then we'll start it up. And in Burp Suite there is 4 main things that we'll be using in this series. So we have the proxy, which is this one right here. We have the intruder, which we'll be using in this episode to perform a brute force attack. Then we have the scanner, and we have the decoder as well, which we'll be looking into further on in this series. But for now, we'll be using proxy and intruder. So first off, if you go into proxy, Burp Suite allow you to be the proxy server in between the front end, meaning the web app, and the back end, the server, meaning that you can interpret the HTTP request and then change stuff in them or read what is actually being sent back and forth between the server. And that is what we're going to use in our little attack for this brute force vulnerability here. So in order to get Burp Suite to work, we need to set up this proxy. You can do this manually by setting up the proxy to listen on in Burp Suite and then in the browser. But if you have the version that I'm using here, so this version here, or a newer version, you can just easily click open browser, which will actually open a browser that is already set up in the correct way. And we'll test this by just going to our damn vulnerable web application. Remember, this is hosted under this local IP here. So if we go in here, you see immediately that Burp Suite changed its window, meaning that we have actually interpreted this request that we just typed in the browser, because there is now an active connection and this Burp Suite is having this proxy in between. And as you see here, this is the request that we just tried to execute. So it got interpreted, and then we can choose here if we want to drop it, if you want to forward it. We'll just forward it because we need to get into our damn vulnerable web application. So for now, I will just click this off here, meaning that we are now off, because I don't want it to pop up every time I execute something. Oh, so let me see admin. That's right. And now we end. So I will head over to brute force. First, I need to check the security. It's set to impossible here. I set it to low before, but since I'm now in a new browser, I'll just submit this to low. So we will be performing a brute force, giving the lowest security available. So here I will just enter something and 11. And as you see here, username and or password is incorrect. So what we want is to try to brute force this such that we can get the right credentials. So I will go back into Burp Suite, set interpret on again. Then I'll just click 1 and 1 again, click login. Oh, and I'll just set update a feature like this, because I already have sent this request, so I'll just be sending a new one to get it to update. So here I have the request that I'm just sending. So I have a get request. I'm trying to enter a username, which is 1, and a password, which is 12. So this is what I'm going to be using to perform my attack. So I'll right click anywhere in this form, and then I will set send to intruder. Now you see here that intruder got highlighted, so I will click this. In here I will go into positions, and as you see here we have the request that we just interpreted from the proxy. So if you go here, this request right here has now been sent to this intruder under positions. And here Burp Suite has tried to automatically mark what might be variables that I would like to use in my little attack right here. But I will only be needing to do something with the username and the password. So the login here, the session ID, and the security status is not relevant for me in this example. So I will click clear, which means that we have now reset this. Now I can then highlight that I would like to do some automation on the username value. I will add this right here, and I would like to do the same for the password. So I will add this as well. Following that we have now added these two as the variables that we would like to do something with, we change the attack type. We want it to be cluster bomb. Then we go over to payload, and now we are actually setting the payload for set1, meaning that the first variable. So we have 2 because I chose 1 and 2 right here, meaning that we have these 2. Then we set the payload options. Here you can choose to load a file. If you have a file of usernames, if you have downloaded that from the internet, there is like major files of like millions of username and millions of password from previous breaches in larger systems. But here I'll just add some to test it off. So I will say test user admin John, like this. And then I will go to variable 2. So this is the password. Here I will say admin user test and password. Now I know that one of these combinations is actually the username and password, but if you used a popular data source, so a file of a lot of passwords, you could get this without knowing it as well, but this is just for demonstration purposes. So if we click start attack, now that we have set both the password for variable 2 and the usernames for variable 1, we can click start attack. And now it will just try to hit the site with all possible combination based on the usernames and the passwords that we inserted, and that is what you see right here. So we just spam the backend with all these combinations. And then we just need to look here in the length. There is other ways to do this to make it smarter, because if you have a million requests, that's not doable to click here. But by just quickly browsing through this, we can see that there is one that has a different length, and that is because that particular request got another message back from the backend when it tried to use this combination to log in. So that possibly mean that this is actually the right username and password. So we'll try this out. So I will see admin and here password, because this were the combination that got a different length. So this one was longer, and that's possible because there is something else returned than just this username and or password is incorrect. So if you log in, and this got interpreted by our proxy, so I'll just forward this. And as you see, welcome to the password protected area admin. So the response were the length of the response were longer because we got more returned right here. And this is basically how you can use this little intruder option to just pump our website with all possible combinations of username and password until you get the right results. So if you are building a web application, you need to know how to secure the application by not allowing that users can just spam your backend server with password and username or login attempts, because that possibly mean that they are doing some kind of brute force attack. But if you as a pen tester find an application where this is possible, you can easily use this as a way to try to breach the system. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you next time on Winslow Academy.